Hey everyone, thanks again for stopping by. Happy to have you. Today we're going to talk a little bit about content strategy, specifically for restaurants. Now, content's a topic that everyone is asking about. It's one of the strategies that everyone recommends when you talk about advertising is how do you produce more content? Content. There's some with all the social platforms out there. It's pretty topical in trying to figure out how do you produce more of it? How do you make it relevant? And behind all that, what drives the effectiveness is a content strategy. So hopefully we'll have some points for you today that your restaurant can use to come up with an effective approach for content. Now you might be asking yourself, do we need a strategy? We think we're making some choices that are effective, but from what I've seen out there, there's just a lot of food shots. Most of the Instagram feeds that I'm finding these days, or on Facebook or on the different social platforms, are really food focused, which is important. Your restaurant's about the food, but how much food porn can you have in one feed? It starts to look the same when you really think about it, and as you start to scroll and look at restaurant to restaurant, everyone seems to be doing the same thing. That makes sense. If you look historically, people, I get it, started to take a lot of pictures of their food. That was a trend, and that was something that happened naturally and organically. And people wanted to share what they were doing and the fun that they were having and the food that they were eating with their friends. And once restaurant marketing people got a hold of that, they decided that that's how they should reflect back their brand. But it's not as organic, it's not as authentic, and there's not a story there. It's just pictures of food. The other part of it is, when you have a food blogger or someone like that sharing a beautiful picture, at least they tell a story around it. They're actually using that picture as an added element around this beautiful story they're going to tell about the experience they had, what was amazing about it, what was not so amazing about it. And then the food is an additional element of that story. But it's not the only piece. And I think a lot of advertisers these days are leveraging food pictures, but not actually getting into the strategy behind the story that they're telling and the mix of content they're putting out. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Let's jump into the first piece of this conversation, which is, do we need one? Well, I think everyone needs a content strategy. If you're not, what you're going to probably notice is that you are posting and making a lot of effort and maybe even investing in someone to create content for you. But if you haven't talked about what you're trying to accomplish and the strategy behind that, what you're going to find is that you don't know if you're successful. You're either going to be doing a lot of work and spending a lot of money with results that don't either seem to move the needle, or maybe they are, you don't even know it because you haven't measured it against a particular approach or goal. So that's part of it. The other part is, without a strategy, there's not going to be a consistent, or you're going to have trouble being consistent with your posting, with the feel, with the look, with the message. It's going to be a bit all over the place, and maybe it is consistent on one platform, but then that doesn't carry through to the other 2, 3, 4 platforms that you're on. That story that you're telling needs to have the same type of message across your social platforms, across your website, in your search messaging, in your promotions, in your restaurant, through your staff. All that story needs to be connected and consistent across all the different channels. And the way to get there is to have a consistent approach. Sure, you can still tap into things that are happening that are on trend, that are timely. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is building a plan ahead of time to lay in the groundwork of your foundational posts and build in opportunity for things that are real time. So either way you look at it, strategy is going to help you be more focused, know what you're trying to develop so it's not happening last minute, and at the end of the day, save you a lot of time, save you money, and give you some direction on it. Is this effective or not? So let's jump into how to develop a brand strategy around your social content approach. The first step that I like to think about and talk to people about is your goals. You really do have to figure out what you're trying to accomplish. Goals mean a lot of things to a lot of people. I think the simplest version is, what are we trying to get our customers to do when they see this content? Is it go to the store and buy our products, or go to the restaurant and buy our food? Is that really it? Or is it something beyond that? Is it something about, reflecting the experiences in store so they know what to expect? Is it to get them to sign up for a list? You really have to tap into, what are you trying to accomplish? What does your restaurant need at this moment? What are the customers expecting when they get to that website that you can deliver on, or to that social media that you can deliver on? How do you create genuine engagement that's natural to the platform? All that can be wrapped up in your goals and your objectives, and you can start to look at platform by platform. Do these objectives A, make sense for the platform, but B, actually deliver something of value to the customers? It's going to keep them engaged. I'm not saying that they're going to follow you or that's going to be the key to unlocking them, increasing your social following. What I'm saying is maybe your social following isn't the goal at all. Maybe it's okay to have 30 people that are fans of your website. It's your mom, your sister, your cousin, and the employees. But that's not the important thing. It's that when someone tells their friend Bob about your restaurant, they go A, to your website, B, to Yelp, or C, to your social profiles to see, what does it feel like at this restaurant? Does the food look good? Is the staff the kind of staff that I'd want to interact with? Does the experience look fun? Maybe I want to be outdoors. Do they have a patio? They're trying to get a feeling for where they're going to go so they can compare it to where the other choices are and make a decision. And some of those, could be one random picture that makes them make that decision. But as long as you've rounded out that strategy to tell your brand story, to talk about your products, to build in, the awareness around regular occurring promotions that you have, all of that starts from a goal of what do you want the customers to see and get out of the experience on your brands. So that's step one. Develop those goals. Work with someone if you have to. Hire someone. Bring in your staff. Bring in the people you trust. Come up with a goal. Step two, brand guidelines. This is a little bit less fun to develop. So, again, hire someone if you need to, but brand guidelines are critical, because what you want to do here is figure out what is the consistent look and feel of the brand when we are talking about the business and when we are putting content out. This could be everything from the images you use, how they look, the colors, the fonts, the specific ways you describe products. Every product should have a way to describe it, the things you talk about first, second, and third, so that everyone knows when we talk about products and when we build content, this is the formula. That way it's not very haphazard and different every time. Consistency, again, is key. A, because you're going to be telling a lot of stories, but B, because you're going to be covering a lot of platforms, and each has its own guideline that you would want to build. And then as you are training people to do this, they can look at these set of processes and not need to learn on the run, which takes more of your time. If you have it written down or recorded, some kind of training, then as your staff turns over, which it's going to, that training can happen organically, and everyone will continue to follow the guidelines as set, which will continue to evolve, and you'll revise them as you need. But there's a point and place that everyone can look back to say, this was the rule that we were looking to follow. Critical. I can't emphasize that enough. That's how you develop consistency of message, and you make sure that the feel isn't off the quality that you're looking for when delivering your message. Third thing on the list, brand voice. In a content strategy, you have to understand your brand voice, meaning what is the personality of the brand? It could be it could match the personality of the owner or of the environment, but again, you have to put some thought into, are we quirky and fun? Are we serious? Are we elegant? Are we refined? Are we like the neighbor next door? What is that brand voice? And that, I'm talking like I am a person, because that's really how it'll feel in the language you use in your communication, in the ways you come up with fun ways to talk about your promotions, in how you interact with your staff, and if you're using them in your content, the way you talk to them or they talk to the camera, how you interact with your customers, all that comes through in your brand voice. There's no really wrong answer to this. It just has to be true to who you want the restaurant to be, and also has to resonate with your customers. If it's not something that's resonating with your customers, then there's a problem. So obviously there's something that drew them in the first place that's usually connected to how that brand voice organically was developed. But it's nice to then start to write down on paper, what is the type of voice that we have? what's resonating, what's been working, what have we been using, and how do we start to implement that consistently. Next step in building your content strategy is a big step. It's about messaging mix. You really do have to sit down and lay out a calendar of all, for the whole year of what are the messages we want to talk about. I like to think about this in 3 layers. First, for me, it's overarching big brand messages. What are the things that we want to talk about from a brand perspective that are the key reasons you come to our restaurant that is different than the reasons you go somewhere else? This can be the quality points about your restaurant, or the convenience, or the special way you source food, or your staff and how they're trained, or the way you work, the way you treat customers, the personal experience you develop, the location. It literally could be anything, but the point is you have to be able to point out to the customers what it is that is special about your brand, and you have to tell them that story, because that story will then begin to take on a life of its own, and they, what you tell them might be something that they pass on. This is our best product. Everyone loves this hero product, whatever that favorite thing is that you have, or the accessory, or whatever the add-on is. Those things that you talk about that you're selling, that are the favorites because they're selling well, and the customers always talk about them, or you're starting to see them in Yelp reviews, or people talk about them in your social posts. Those need to be reflected back in the story you tell in your messaging mix. So keep in mind your brand. Yes, there's going to be product messages, but the first step is figuring out what do we want to consistently tell people about our brand. And that can be seasonal, and there can be pieces to that you rotate out and you focus on throughout the year, but you have to have a plan, is my point. Second part after brand messaging is your product messaging. You do want to talk about your products. What are the things that people like the most? How do you remind them and create those cravings again and again, and remind them that there's this thing that they love? They just need to remember to come and get it this week. Key here is having a way to describe your products that really entice people, really get them excited about the food. And there's the visuals, there's the language, there's the customer feedback on these products, or creating some special event around them. Anything you can do to tell your product story and get people re-excited about the things that they love the most. You could also introduce new product lines. That's always a story you can tell. Create some new excitement, some new news, and you can pepper that in to create some differentiation. But again, I like to lean into what are the favorites? What are the things that people talk about naturally? The next thing on the list in terms of your content strategy, we've talked about your brand within your messaging mix. We talked about your brand message, your product message, and then I'd say the third thing on that list are your promotions. These are the things that come in consistently and inconsistently. So consistently would be, what are the things each week or month that you tell people to expect? So that's maybe your college night, your Taco Tuesday, your game night special, whatever the thing is, happy hour. All those things are things that people come to expect, and they get excited to tell their friends about. Hey, should we go to happy hour tonight? You got to have some kind of promotional messaging in your mix. Doesn't always have to be discount or messaging that takes off the price of your product. It can be that helps, but it should be something that they can talk about that's a regularly recurring promotion that they come to expect with your restaurant. And then you can throw in things that are unique to the time period that leverage timely messaging. So if it's 4th of July, it could be your 4th of July weekend something. Whether it's a special food product you put on the menu, or a band you have coming, whatever the thing is, you should be leveraging events to build excitement around the timeliness of what's happening in the market, a reason to bring people in. If you happen to be a place that shows sports or something like that, being able to tell people, that, hey, it's a big night. We have a couple of the games on, so they know they don't normally come out, but now's the time to come out. That's helpful. You'd be surprised on how many people are not regulars, but then, come out when there's actually a big event to go to. So leverage that in your messaging mix within your promotions as well. So again, messaging mix is brand messages, product messages, and promotional messages. And then beyond that, I think you think about the things like the time of day. What are we saying in the morning, at the different meal occasions, at lunch, at dinner, in the evening? What are we doing to support seasonal foods and that kind of thing? So all these kind of contribute to a mix of messages. And then how much are we talking about, our people and our products and the brand and that stuff. So all of that contributes. And once you lay it out on a calendar format, month by month, week by week, day by day, even hour by hour, you'll start to see, okay, well, let's pick and choose. When do we talk about brand? When do we talk about the promotion? When do we talk about the products? How do we leverage that into a content campaign that fits each channel? And, do we want to post 4 times a day, 5 times a day? What's the, with video, long form, short form, pictures, comments, what is the actual execution of that? That's the next step. So distribution. After you get past your messaging, make sure you got to figure out distribution. Where are you putting all this content you're creating? The key to distribution is to A, lay out all your channels. B, figure out what's the opportunity in terms of what types of units do they accept, what type of units do you have that you can fit into that, and how do you make it organic to that platform. There are different mindsets depending on the platforms you're on. Whether it's something that's a more visual platform like an Instagram or a Pinterest, or it's something that's more copy driven like a Twitter, or something like Facebook that has lots of different creative options. How are you leveraging that platform, and what your customers are coming to expect on that? And then also, what are you paying for versus what are you just posting? There might be a great opportunity to bring in a lot of traffic on a certain day, and you might want to pay to drive a broader reach that weekend so that everyone knows that this event's happening that everyone's going to love. That might be an effective use of dollars to tell people your message versus the broader branding stuff that's going to be a slower burn. So what I would recommend is developing a list of messages that you can try and test, because this is a long game. It's not a short-term return. When you're talking about content strategy, this is a long game. But in the short term, looking at every message, trying different copy even, same picture, different copy, trying different pictures, same copy, until you find out what works and resonates with your customer. You can keep on then tweaking and changing, but I'd say start with a lot, run it all, and then start to optimize. And the more content, the better. Put money towards it, see what works against the broader audience. When you pay, you actually get some of those statistics. So it's not the easiest process. If you're a small business owner and you're trying to do this yourself, hire someone. It doesn't have to be a consultant. I'd have a consultant to lay out your strategy for you, but then hire someone that specializes in just executing social ads. That shouldn't be as expensive, and you can pay them for the project and have them lay out the distribution of the different channels and test them and report back to you so you can start to see what's happening. And then last thing in your content strategy, we've talked about goals, guidelines, your brand voice, the messaging mix, and distribution. Last thing, ideas tend to be key. Again, just like creative is the variable with your messaging and within your distribution and having the right voice, ideas and creative are the variable overall. So with content, you never know what's going to work. You might have the best laid out plans, but it's the random thing that you weren't expecting that actually resonates. So you have to take as many at bats as possible, get as much content out there as possible. Ideas tend to be endless. If you're having trouble with ideas, I'm not here today to give you more of them. I would say Google restaurant content ideas. And I did that today. Literally the first 3 posts that pop up are like 72 ideas on how to develop content for your restaurant. There's plenty of them. And from having so many customers, so many experiences you're creating one-on-one, all the different foods you have, your own personal story, the restaurant story, the staff. There's so many variables at play that you can literally create content infinity. And even the content you do create can be reused and repurposed and recreated or played over and over at different times of day. So I would worry less about creating the right volume of ideas. If you're having trouble, Google some, but bring in people, talk to your staff, talk to your trusted advisors, talk to your customers. Once you have conversations about what interests them and what they think about your restaurant and what they love, you can reflect that back in your content. And also there's always something happening real time in the world that you can reflect in your content as well. So Again, once you lay out that strategy, you'll feel like you're not pressed at the last minute to come up with these ideas, and you really have time to brainstorm what fits into your mix. So that's what we got today on content strategy. I hope it helped. I hope that there's at least some ideas and light bulbs going off on why you should actually sit down and plan this out. I know it seems like a lot of time, and time is critical when you're a business owner and you just don't have it. But taking that little bit of time to really think about what your strategy is, how you're going to implement it, will save you time in the future. And you can actually build a system and a process out that other people can execute, that you can either be the final check at the end, you can give input at the beginning, whatever it is. Having a system will help so that it doesn't feel like you're not doing it enough, B, you're spending too much on things you don't know are working, or C, that it's inconsistent, that it's like Swiss cheese. You're doing one thing here, one thing there, and you don't know how it all ties together, or if it's what's going to happen this month versus the next month. So have a plan, have a strategy. I guarantee you it'll be more effective, and I hope that helps. If you have feedback, please leave comments. Love to hear your ideas, or if you want to hear more, follow me. I'll keep putting out content just like this, and happy to hear your questions or requests for new content. Thank you, subscribe, and talk to you soon.